we're thinking differently about the roles in our organizations. And so one of the things that I think is becoming more and more evident is that right now, as technology is evolving so quickly, it's changing everyone's jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to change all of our industries. And so there's a lot that's unknown. And while that can be scary, it also means there's opportunity.
Welcome back to the CultureCon podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Zach. We're the co-founders of CultureCon and your host for the show.
This episode is part of a special series we created live on-site in our podcast studio at CultureCon 2025 in Madison, Wisconsin.
To capture these conversations, we partnered with our friends at People Forward Network, our podcast media partner. A huge thank you to Nikki Lewallen Gregory, who stepped in as host for these live studio sessions.
These episodes feature real-time insights, stories, and leadership lessons shared during the conference, giving you a front row seat to the energy and impact of CultureCon.
And we're excited to bring you along. Let's dive into today's conversation.
Hey, it's Nikki Lewallen, and we're back at CultureCon live in Madison, Wisconsin, 2025. We're kicking off the People Forward Network studio today, and I'm so excited to dig into this episode. Each one of these guests got a chance to prep, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm fired up about the conversation and going deep, but we're going to do it really fast. I'm here today with Natasha Nuytten, and she's here from CLARA. And today we're going to talk about really honing in on getting unstuck, from the ways that we've thought in the past, the things that we've done. Like one of the things I remember from our prep call was, why are we still doing the resume? And how is it that we're using AI in a way that these people leaders feel like, oh, I can embrace it and it's my way of using this. The word that came to me during our prep call was, we have to unlearn, because there's so many things for decades and decades that we've continued to do, but let's challenge, why are we doing it? Right?
Yes.
So let's start with, Natasha, the unlearning, the mindset. Let's just challenge the mindset and the way we're thinking about this as we go into let's challenge how we think.
Yeah, no, I love it. And thank you for having me, Nikki. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. I also was pretty fired up when I walked away from our prep call. So the reality is we don't learn unless there's some friction, right? And things aren't working. We don't get better. That's just human nature. And the reality is we have fallen into these ruts in human resources because it's a hard job. And these very caloric intensive monsters in our head like to fall into patterns that are recognizable, right? And what happens with that is then there's no change. And so we do the thing that's easy because we have all these other hard things that we need to do. So we stick with what's familiar. And the reality is we do not live in the same world that we lived in 10 years ago, much less 50 years ago, right?
Right.
And so we have to be thinking about how we're going to do HR different. And the reality is there's a lot of places where we've changed. We talk a lot more about employee thriving and employee wellness, and we look at benefits very differently. But one of the things that we haven't yet done is what I dream about at night, which is blowing up the resume and thinking about how do we change the way we identify talent and bring it into our organizations? How do we change how our organizations see us? And they think of us more as a revenue center rather than a cost center, and bring us into the conversation around strategy and execution. And all of that, they're these really big ideas, but it all starts with unlearning the way that we have been doing the things we've been doing for a long time and thinking differently about the way we do our work with technology, the way we think about talent and potential, the way we think about ourselves as strategists, and the way that we then build more dynamic teams for our organizations.
Yeah. A couple of things come to mind about, what's coming up for people as they may be hearing this. Well, is it okay if I change? Right? We've always done it this way. This is how our company's done it. This is traditional HR. And just giving that permission to, let's rethink the why. What's the why to be able to meet today's needs? So I think that permission and giving people the opportunity to apply their creativity to it.
Yeah.
So I love dreams. So let's lean into the dream of blowing up the resume. So for somebody that's well, what would we even do? How would we get to know these people and hire for the right talent to come on our team? Let's walk through that.
Yeah. I love that. And the reality is it's not that anybody's doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
I also want to be clear about that. It's just that we can do better. So let's, right? And so one of the things that we've been talking about in HR for, 10 or 15 years is skills-based hiring. and we talk about it, and it's conceptually something that we all get on board with, but we're not really doing it. And part of that is because it's hard to move organizations. Part of that is because defining what that means can be really challenging. So in some places, it means we give skills tests and people have to take an engineering test or they have to take a math test or whatever the case may be. That's one way of looking at it. But I think because the world is changing so fast and technology is changing how we are all going to be doing our jobs moving forward, that when we think about skills, so much of what we do in a day is learnable, right? And yes, at senior leadership, it takes time to learn some of those things. But the reality is, like, if we can grab people who have adjacent or transferable skills, who are critical thinkers, who are agile learners and can connect dots, then really what we look at for skill is some of it, yes, can I hit the ground running, because sometimes you just need that. But also, what's your potential, right? Can you learn a thing? Are you resourceful? Are you proactive? Can you walk into a situation and kind of connect with your colleagues and figure out how to solve it? And so I think that type of skill, those, and I hate that we use the term soft skills when we talk about these things.
Crucial skills.
They are. They're totally critical.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think what's interesting is, like, even when we look at the military, they're the ones who coined that phrase, soft skills. And we don't think of the military as like a soft place, right? But the reason why they drilled in on it is because it was so critical to the success of individuals within the organization that those were the things that they were looking for when they were building leaders. Like, we can teach you to build an engine. We can teach you to march in time. We can teach you how to run a 6-minute mile. Right. What we can't necessarily get at as quickly is, are you good with people? Do you take in new information and apply it in an old situation and do better? So I think the irony that those skills are coming from a place where we typically think of like hard skills driving the culture and being what really made people successful, is that actually what made folks successful was their ability to connect, their ability to learn, their ability to be resourceful and proactive.
Yeah,
so
that's so good. And I think about, how many companies you hear, our main focus is to ensure that we're hiring for culture fit. And I don't think that we're letting go of that. Right. Definitely, each of our cultures have a different vibe. Like at my company, we're all remote, very autonomous, kind of come and go as you please. There's not this hard and fast on timing and how we do things. Some people don't fit into that, right? Like, so there's some of that from a culture fit that definitely applies. But for the leader that says, like, that's the front runner for us, how would you challenge them to think about skills over culture fit, but keeping that importance?
Yeah, I think part of it might be, and this happens with, I think, with a lot of things, we try to simplify them, right, to help them be understood and embraced. And the reality is, like, people are complex, right? So none of these things are super straightforward. So even when we think about the term culture fit, it is a particular way of working. It is important that someone can like get with the vibe of your organization. And there is this reality that cultures that can evolve as themselves, right? Like when you have the parameters, it makes it so much easier to be creative and to do better work because you know where the fences are. Right. And so when we think about value add, I think that's important. And what I love about most folks who are in talent acquisition, or if they're an HR person also doing recruiting, whatever their role is, they're really looking for those things that, you find sort of human to human. They're looking for those things that are those value add abilities. And so it can become a little bit challenging to do that at scale. Yeah. Right. And so it's actually one of the reasons we built our company, because we can look for some of those things and help you get deeper insights, right? More meaningful sort of information on the front end. But it takes a commitment to doing that because, as I said about these little calorie monsters in our brain, we're going to try to default to what we know, what we've seen work in our organization, the skill set that so-and-so had. Joe just left and we need to replace her. And how do we do that? Well, we want to find someone who looks exactly like Joe on paper. Yeah. And the reality is, like, if you consider the constellation of skills within the team, and then you think about what drives us as an organization forward, we might need to have something different than Joe. Even if she was amazing, we might need to have a different constellation of skills. And so, and the challenge, I know this is not all on HR, right? Hiring managers, I mean, we're tough.
Yeah.
We were tough customers for sure. And we change our minds, right? And we say we want a particular thing. So if we can, as an HR team, recruiting team, look at these adjacent skills, transferable skills, equivalencies, then we can validate our recommendations, right? And we can say, hey, by the way, of the 1,500 people that came through this funnel, 10 of them meet your requirements. Like clearly we need to have a different kind of conversation and we need to adjust some things. So just having that data around the skills is really validates the hard work that recruiters are trying to do and getting new and different talent into their organizations.
We want to give a quick thank you to our friends at Culture Shape. They're really helping people and culture leaders design and deliver higher impact programs through a single source.
Yeah, and one of the things I love is their culture wheel. It's a 12-month visual calendar that makes it easier to plan, organize, and communicate culture programs across the whole organization. It's a simple way to get stronger buy-in and support.
And right now we got a really cool promotion for our CultureCon podcast listeners. You can get 50% off a one-on-one 4-week online consulting program with Pete Savage, Culture Shape's CEO. These spots are limited, so if you're interested, head to cultureshape.co/CultureCon to grab your place.
I'm about to go deeper into CLARA because I'm curious and want to know. So we're about to go there and talk a little bit about your take on AI. Okay. But I think a couple of things that you shared that we've talked about. Number one, this like muscle for creativity and finding new ways. We all get to do that. Like we all get permission to bring that to the table. And I love that you mentioned all the things we're talking about don't just live in the HR function. This is a company-wide initiative led by HR, HR seen as a strategic lead for it, but we all get to do that together, meaning all of us in the company get to think of better ways and new ways, right? And then as we continue to find those new ways, sticking with those, right? Because it's so easy to go back and like default. It's like, oh, I know this is safe, right? Yes. But holding each other accountable to these new ways because we believe those are going to grow us. Those are going to get us to our goals. That's it. Because we've thought from the why are we doing it, right? Now, when we talked about like your dream of blowing up the resume, I'm pretty sure that CLARA then helps with that, right?
Yeah,
to
we do.
Be able to sustain that new way of being. Take us a little deeper into, with everything we've talked about, how does CLARA help and your ways of thinking about AI? Because that's what you do. So we'll bring all that together.
So the way we think about talent is, listen, on paper, I don't make sense as a CEO. I spent 15 years mentoring and doing education, working in schools, working with families, doing grassroots community activism, policy, and community norming, right? Then I started when I was 3, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I spent 10 years working with an e-com business for an aesthetic physician. We had education for other physicians. We started 3 product lines, built a distribution company, took a couple products global. Like we did a lot of different things there. Then I ran a table tennis company, right, as operations. I love that. Yeah, it was really fun. Cool. And then I did some consulting for the city of Chicago around grants management. So I've done a lot of different things. And until recently, that would not on paper have made me look like a CEO, right? What it would have made me look like is someone who had no idea what they wanted to be when they grew up. So this is an example of actually how the evolution in human resources, how we have done well, in that we're thinking differently about the roles in our organizations. And so one of the things that I think is becoming more and more evident is that right now, as technology is evolving so quickly, it's changing everyone's jobs. Oh, yeah. And it's going to change all of our industries. And so there's a lot that's unknown. And while that can be scary, it also means there's opportunity. And so we think about talent in such a way that I don't think that organizations are going to continue in the future to hire for specific job titles and specific roles. They're going to look at hiring teams who collaborate and work together and is a little bit more like Swiss cheese, right? Like I don't have this piece, but I have all of these other things. And then this person covers what I don't, but they have these other things. And so
celebratory intermission for that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I think that organizations are going to hire differently. And because of that, we need to look at talent differently. And so the way that the world is evolving, we need to look at our people learners. What is their additive nature of the skills that they've had? What are those transferable and adjacent skills that maybe they haven't been in our industry, right? Like we have a partner who is amazing and they are global. And the reality is like there are not enough people in the world who have done the work that they are doing to be able to meet their growth goals. Like it's just impossible. Yeah. They don't exist. So the way that you look at that is, okay, what industries have you been in? What skill set do you bring to the table that we can teach you? Yeah. We can teach you these logistics, right? And you've got the potential to do these other things. And the challenge is that takes time. Yeah. That takes a commitment. And they've done an amazing job of saying, hey, we're dedicated to really thinking about our talent organization very differently. And so to your point, this is not something that should be dropped in the HR bucket only, right? Like, yes, they're going to execute, but they need to be a part of building that strategy, and it needs to be done in collaboration with the rest of the leadership in the organization. So that's kind of how we think about the talent and skills that are coming, right?
I have a few comments on
please,
that.
Yes, please.
I love your non-traditional path. I don't know about you, but you think about the people you admire. Most don't have the traditional path, right? Mm-hmm. I think that is something for all of us to take away and to think about for a second. And you had modeled and shared the traditional linear path to get to that role, like climbing the ladder. No more of that, right? And if we eliminate these old ways of thinking, we unlearn that, it's the certifications and, the schooling and all of these different levels to get there versus what does that human bring to the table that could contribute to this collaborative team that gets to this end result. Mm-hmm. And then you were sharing about the global company that there's not even near enough of these people. The change in the lives of those people that the company makes, they've changed their life forever. Yes. Because they never even thought I didn't even know that was a thing. And more of that's coming. Yes. Jobs that we can't even think of right now. We couldn't even sit here and brainstorm that are coming. And then workplaces that get creative and help people go in a completely different way towards meaningful work. Yeah. Right. And they'll remember this was one of my best experiences in life. And we get to do that and lead that as leaders. So I love how you think about it. So great. Now take us into CLARA and how that
the technology of the thing
ties in.
So because as I said earlier, it is very difficult to scale that. Right. And so thankfully we live in an age when technology can sort of help us find those ziggers and zaggers and people who have done a lot of different things or who are great learners because we can assess for that. So we look at, first of all, AI, right? We know it's everywhere. We're all going to have to embrace it at some point if we haven't already, but it needs to be intentional and ethical. It needs to be very transparent. Need to be able to see inside the black box. So I think that's incredibly important. And obviously, in the human resources world, there are a lot of ongoing cases and there's a lot of questions. So making sure it's legally defensible, that it's transparent and it's understandable is super important.
And I think that is to be just reiterated. There are so many stats out there that say the number one reason why adoption isn't happening is fear and being misunderstood.
Absolutely.
So spending ample time. It's like if a message needs to be communicated 7 times so it sticks, do more of that with helping people feel comfortable, overcome the fear. You got to take a lot of time. This is not like a fast start race, right? So I love it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to understand what AI can and cannot do right now. It's the worst it's ever going to be, right? That's something we need to keep in mind. It's only going to get better. Yeah. And it is also true that going back to our sort of Swiss cheese analogy, there are certain things we want AI to do that it just can't yet. Yeah. And then there are other things that it can do really well. And so I think it's being intentional about when and where you incorporate it. One of the things that it can do well is if it's built on the right models and if it is built with the intention of mitigating bias, it can help create a consistent measure for folks coming in the door. And so that's really the starting place for us is we wanted to make sure that we were mitigating as much bias as possible in the process. You can't totally eliminate it, right? But you can mitigate it. Also, we wanted to make sure that it helped teams, to your point around creativity, move faster and smarter with more data so that they can have capacity to be thinking about things more creatively, solve problems better, right?
Yeah.
We know the research has been done, the business case has been made that when humans do their best work and they are in diverse groups that are connected, collaborative, and ability to sort of bounce off of each other, that companies win.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's
sure.
been made. So I shouldn't have to convince someone that thinking about talent differently is good for their organization, but it's moving all the pieces and greasing all the wheels and doing all that kind of thing. So the AI technology, I think, can do a lot of things, obviously from scheduling and doing some calendar things. I think it really depends on the technology and where has it been built to mitigate bias, or is it perpetuating, right? And it's really important that we think about that. And so for us, it's the way we handle the data. It's the way we parse the data. It's making sure that we're not just making a final decision, but keeping humans in the loop all the way along. So, for instance, what we do is we engage the candidate at the time of application. We look at their resume versus the job description. Resumes, right? We're doing that for right now because that is still what companies use. And we look at that and say, hey, do you have other abilities, other skills, other experience that is either not reflected here or helps us understand why you think you can do this thing that you haven't listed on your resume, whatever the case may be. So candidates get the opportunity to respond, put themselves in their best possible light, their best foot forward kind of thing. And then we take that information, ask about these other future ready things. And what we find is like, there are more amazing people in your funnel than you think. And so, yes, our job as HR people is to like narrow it down, right? But the reality is like, if we're missing 26% of the awesomeness in our funnel, we need to capture that, right? And so if we can help teams do that and then create that sort of consistent measure, right? This is something I will never forget. When I was a kid, I'm oldish, and I love it, so no complaints. But remember those little wooden rulers that had like a metal edge on the top? Every single person in the classroom, because those measures, those rulers were just a tiny bit different. And one person might measure from the very end of that measuring stick. One person might measure from the first tick mark. One person might measure from the edge of the metal. It is inconsistent. So even if we're all using the same ruler, we're measuring differently and coming up with different outputs. So if we can create the measuring stick and then help everyone use it very consistently, we help sort of mitigate that bias in the process. But we also say, this is really what we're looking for. And my interpretation of it is not different than yours because we've agreed on what it is. So dial things up, dial things down, take the AI out of a box so that it's our tool. And we can literally see what it's measuring. If we want to change anything, we can. When the hiring manager changes their mind, because we all do, you can reshuffle everyone in the funnel. And so everyone's getting that very like level playing field for consideration. So that's how the technology works. It sits within an ATS or outside for small orgs or people who just don't like their ATS, because that's a whole different conversation. And then we not only look at the resume, but we create a profile that de-identifies names. It strips out logos if you so choose. It will also say, for instance, I went to university from 94 to 98 for undergraduate school. Well, that immediately tells you how old I am, right? And well, if you do math, I guess. And so we can de-identify those types of things too, so that we can really help teams really focus on skills. What does this person bring to the table? What's unique about them? And we can provide a little context around that learning agility, critical thinking. The candidate gets immediate feedback. I'm like, hey, you have really high learning agility. Here are some things you can do to continue to develop that. Or you have emerging skills in this critical thinking. Here are some things that you could take on in your current or new role to help you develop that. And that information can also be shared with the hiring manager to help then develop that person down the road. So
good.
That's a lot. But I think I got all three of those questions.
You know, the way I'm thinking right now is the traditional networking question where someone says, what do you do? And that's our traditional way of the resume, right? But what if we shifted it and said, who are you? That's where we're going. And you look at the people that will work in our workplaces when we're trying to attract the best talent, the best people. Let's attract the best people for the opportunities that they could bring.
That's it.
Rather than, what they've done in the past. It's so inspiring to think about that.
Mm.
And for the leaders that are listening, we get to have that opportunity to really change lives by helping people. People want to be seen. People want to feel valued. And that's exactly what this is doing is, there's never going to be enough resumes anyway for that traditional job, just like the global employer. We're all going into that direction. And we think about it this other way, and how many more people could be in our audience of potentials because we're asking them, who are you?
Yeah.
And it's this profile of their greatest opportunities and their vulnerabilities and who they want to be and their dreams, right? Versus like, here's all the things that I've done and I didn't get that credential, so therefore I'm getting rolled out.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love what you all are doing. Before we wrap up, can you just share, the greatest like unlearning challenge that you've got for today based on our conversation? We talked about a lot.
We
No pressure.
did. Yeah.
But how would you summarize like, here's my greatest challenge for unlearning, and then let us all know like how we can stay connected. And I would love to also grab more time with you and
Yes.
coffee and learn more about CLARA. But
I love that.
wrap us up.
I think the biggest opportunity that you can start with is when you're thinking about skill and ability and what people bring to the table. It's not so much important about what someone has been through. It's about what they have learned from what they have been through. And so that puts us in a position as human resource folks to get to who are you, and that blend of how do you work? How do you show up? Are you a match for this culture? Can you work in this environment? What can we do to support you to get your best for us, but also for us to do our best for you in that relationship? And so I think if we can just right now today start with that, what if people learn from what they've been through? It puts us in a legally defensible way of beginning to think about potential and value add and skills and ability.
Oh, that's so good. And I've got one little thing that came up as you were sharing. I have a friend that her tagline that she shares a lot is own your 50. So whether you're the leader, whether you're the person looking for a new job, whatever it is, right? Everyone has their 50 in this. And I think about something you just shared around our opportunity to go inward when we are the candidate. We are looking for that meaningful work because stats do say most people love Mondays, and that's so unfortunate. So there's somebody that's listening for sure that is struggling with Monday, and what's the work you need to do?
Yes.
To really go deeper to understand what do you want to go away from the traditional resume, and whether whoever you're looking at potentially evaluating as your future employer, they might still ask for the resume, but be prepared with, this is where I want to go.
Yeah.
And this is how, the things of the past have built me and taught me these things. And this is the type of workplace that I'm looking for. I love that. You just help to think about that, because there are so many people struggling, and man, time goes fast. And,
I know.
And go find that meaningful work. We all sides get to own their 50.
That's it.
This is so good. Okay, so in case everyone couldn't tell, I'm like Natasha and the podcast skills coming through, right? Tell us about your podcast.
Oh, we have a podcast called Human Side Up, and we talk with leaders. Sometimes it's CHROs, sometimes it's CEOs, sometimes it's just folks who manage a team. And we just talk about the humanity that it takes to be an inclusive leader and how we can get better at it. It's mostly because I like to learn how I can get better at it. So check us out.
Awesome. We'll link it in the show notes too. How do people connect with you after this? What's the best way?
So I'm on LinkedIn. There are not a lot of Newtons outside of Belgium. So you're certainly welcome to find me on LinkedIn, Natasha Nuytten. You can also find us at our website, getclara.io. I love having conversations. I'm always happy to reach out, ideate, talk about how we can support you in your business, or just what are the challenges and help you think them through. I'm a pretty decent thought partner. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time.
That's a wrap on this episode of the official CultureCon podcast.
If you got something out of it, share it with a friend, a teammate, or a fellow culture geek.
And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And if you want more ways to stay connected and inspired, check out our upcoming events page for a full listing of webinars, workshops, and conferences.
You'll find the link in the show notes, and we'd love to welcome you to a CultureCon event soon.
Until next time,